Breaking news on the automotive industry crisis. General Motors shares plummeted 5% today, contributing to a massive 540-point decline in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This follows President Trump's latest trade policy announcement, sending shockwaves through the automotive sector. The proposed 25% tariffs on automotive imports from Canada and Mexico could increase vehicle prices by $4,000 to $10,000, raising serious concerns about the industry's future. What many Americans don't realize is that no vehicle is entirely made in USA. Every car manufactured in the United States relies on parts imported from neighboring countries. The impact on electric vehicles is particularly severe. According to the Anderson Economic Group, production costs for electric vehicles could increase by up to $112,000 per unit. This increase would be passed directly to American consumers, potentially devastating the emerging electric vehicle market. Canada's response to these tariffs has been swift. Speaking at the Ambassador Bridge, Canadian officials declared this move a direct attack on their workers. Canada has announced plans to retaliate with stronger tariffs, marking a significant shift in US-Canada relations. European leaders have joined the criticism. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen condemned Trump's decision as a stupid blow to the global supply chain. The international community views these tariffs as a threat to trade relationships and global economic stability. Market analysts are now predicting a potential recession in the automotive sector, with ripple effects throughout the US economy. As stock values continue to decline and production costs soar, the industry faces its most significant challenge in recent years. The American consumer will ultimately bear the burden of these increased costs, affecting both the cost of living and purchasing power. This developing situation threatens not just the automotive industry, but also international partnerships and the broader economic landscape. Breaking news on escalating trade tensions between the United States and Canada, as Ontario Premier Doug Ford delivers a stark warning to the American administration. "We aren't going to roll over," Ford declared, promising retaliatory measures that will make American people feel the pain of recent trade decisions. The automotive industry stands at the center of this brewing storm, with President Trump's proposed 25% tariff on imported vehicles threatening to reshape the market. Last year, 7.38 million imported vehicles were sold in the United States, each now facing a potential 25% tax burden. Industry analysts project new car prices could skyrocket from the current average of $44,900 to as high as $53,000. This isn't just about luxury vehicles. We're talking about everyday family cars becoming significantly more expensive. The stock market's reaction has been swift and severe. The Dow Jones plummeted by over 540 points in a single day, reflecting growing investor anxiety. General Motors saw its stock drop by 5% as markets grapple with the implications of these tariffs. Experts warn that this America-first strategy might push the US economy toward recession. When consumers face higher car prices, they typically respond by delaying purchases or turning to used vehicles. This ripple effect could trigger a broader economic slowdown, affecting everything from manufacturing to retail sales. The administration's goal of bringing manufacturing back to American soil sounds appealing, but automotive industry experts argue it's not that simple. The global supply chain has become deeply integrated over decades, and dismantling these relationships could have severe consequences. Premier Ford's warning of retaliation suggests we're entering a new phase of trade tensions, where tit-for-tat measures could escalate into a full-blown trade war. As one analyst noted, when one statement from the president can shake the entire economy, we need to seriously reconsider our approach to trade policy. Breaking news on the American automotive industry's reshoring challenges and market turbulence. Today's story focuses on the reality behind the Bring Manufacturing Back to America movement, revealing obstacles and market reactions impacting Americans. Wall Street responded dramatically to proposed manufacturing policy changes, with automotive giants taking hits. General Motors saw its stock drop 5%, Ford declined 3%, and Stellantis followed this downward trend. Market analysts warn these aren't temporary fluctuations, but signal deeper concerns about industry profitability. The timeline for establishing new manufacturing facilities in the United States presents a reality check. Industry experts confirm that building and operating a new auto plant requires 2.5 to 3.5 years, even under optimal conditions. This doesn't account for challenges like restructuring supply chains and retraining teams. The automotive market is showing signs of strain. Middle-class Americans face rising car prices, fewer dealer incentives, and diminishing choices on dealership lots. Both new and used car prices continue rising, potentially making vehicle ownership unattainable for many Americans. Canada has issued a warning about potential cuts to electricity exports, which could complicate manufacturing efforts. This development amid trade tensions could impact production costs in border states. Auto industry executives warn that current policy directions could push the sector into recession. The effects would extend beyond automakers, affecting the supply chain and potentially destabilizing the broader economy. The key question: is the American dream of car ownership becoming an unaffordable luxury for the middle class? As financing becomes more difficult and affordable options disappear, many families face tough decisions about their transportation future. Breaking news: America faces potential energy crisis as trade. War with Canada intensifies. In a dramatic escalation of trade tensions, Canada has threatened to cut vital electricity exports to the United States, potentially affecting millions of American households and businesses. This development comes in response to the Trump administration's recent reinstatement of 25% tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and other key imports. Ontario Premier Doug Ford delivered a stark warning on March 2, 2025, stating that Canada would not hesitate to cut electricity exports if the US continues its aggressive tariff policies. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's administration quickly backed this position, suggesting multiple retaliatory options. Canada currently exports 65 terawatt-hours of electricity to the US annually, representing approximately 10% of American electricity imports. States most vulnerable include New York, Vermont, Michigan, and Minnesota. Experts predict electricity prices could surge by 30 to 50% in affected regions if Canada follows through. The North American power grid's deep integration makes an immediate shutdown practically impossible. A more likely scenario involves gradual supply reductions and strategic price increases. Canada's leverage extends beyond electricity. Here's what's in their arsenal: steel and aluminum. The US relies on Canada for 30% of its aluminum imports. Nickel: 20% of US nickel imports come from Canada, crucial for EV batteries. Oil: 1.4 million barrels of crude oil flow daily from Canada to the US. President Trump addressed Congress on March 4, maintaining a firm stance despite mounting pressure. With both nations unwilling to back down, analysts warn of severe economic consequences if this trade war escalates. The situation remains fluid, with energy experts monitoring developments closely. American businesses are already preparing for possible supply chain disruptions and cost increases. Breaking news: economic turmoil as trade policies create perfect storm. Good evening, I'm bringing you critical updates on America's economic situation affecting your wallet. The Dow Jones has plummeted 1.2% today, triggering panic on Wall Street and erasing billions in market value. The White House's controversial stance on electricity trade with Canada has northeastern states bracing for potential blackouts and soaring power costs. Industry experts warn electricity bills could double or triple, hitting American families hard this winter. President Trump's dismissal of Canadian concerns has prompted warnings of retaliatory tariffs on American goods. Sources suggest Canada might gradually reduce electricity supply rather than implementing an immediate cutoff. But market confidence is already damaged. The auto industry is vulnerable. Manufacturing plants face potential shutdowns if power costs rise. This comes as Trump's administration continues its swing-door approach to tariff policies with Mexico and Canada, leaving businesses in chaos. Financial analysts project a 3% GDP decline in the first quarter. This is a clear recession warning, says Chief Economist Robert Matthews from Capital Markets Institute. The constant policy changes are creating an environment where businesses cannot plan ahead. Companies are freezing investments, cutting production, and beginning layoffs. The Atlanta Federal Reserve's report suggests we're heading into dangerous economic territory. If the administration had maintained previous trade policies, economists estimate we'd be seeing continued growth instead of this downturn. The manufacturing sector is showing signs of grinding to a halt. Stay tuned for updates as this economic crisis unfolds. Financial advisors recommend reviewing investment portfolios and preparing for market volatility ahead. Good evening, I'm bringing you concerning developments about America's economic stability and growing recession fears. Recent analysis shows troubling patterns in U.S. trade policies affecting global markets. The first quarter GDP projections show a 3% shrinkage, setting off alarm bells across Wall Street. Economic experts indicate that Biden-era policies could have yielded 4% growth instead of this downturn. The cause? Erratic policy decisions have left markets reeling. Recent changes to tariff positions with Mexico are now suspended until April 2nd. This temporary measure has created uncertainty, with businesses unable to plan ahead. The situation with Canada is equally concerning. After imposing tariffs affecting the automotive sector, there's been an abrupt reversal. President Trump has accused Prime Minister Trudeau of exploiting the trade crisis for political gain. An unfounded claim, given Trudeau isn't in an election cycle. Switzerland, neutral for over 5 centuries, has taken the extraordinary step of publicly criticizing U.S. trade policies at the World Economic Forum, unprecedented for a traditionally neutral nation. The stock market reflects this instability. Major indicators show increased volatility, with investors struggling to adapt to rapid policy changes. Business leaders are reluctant to make long-term investments in this climate. The key question: are we seeing strategic economic adjustments or warning signs of a severe crisis? With negative GDP projections and waning business confidence, answers may come sooner than expected. Breaking news from Europe reveals an unprecedented shift in Switzerland's diplomatic stance, as this traditionally neutral nation opposes U.S. trade policies. The story, which has captured international attention, begins at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where former President Trump's call for European tariffs sparked an unexpected response. Switzerland, a nation without military conflict since 1815, has broken its characteristic silence. With an $800 billion GDP and unemployment below 3%, this alpine nation typically stays above international disputes. However, recent developments have forced a departure from this centuries-old approach. The Swiss reaction shows during the Basel Carnival, where citizens don masks and parade through streets, using satire to express concerns. This demonstration reflects growing unease with international leadership styles that conflict with Swiss values. What makes this noteworthy is Switzerland's role as a global financial hub. Home to international organizations and the World Central Bank, Switzerland's economic stability has been a model for maintaining independence while wielding global influence. Their decision to speak out signals a shift in international dynamics. According to UN reports, Switzerland's neutrality isn't merely political, but a carefully crafted financial strategy. The country's position as a trusted mediator has been built on neutrality. However, current global trade tensions have pushed even this most neutral nation to reassess its role. This development comes as global trade relationships face strain. The Swiss response sends a clear message about maintaining international norms and cooperation. For a nation neutral through 2 world wars, this stance represents a significant change in diplomatic behavior. Experts suggest this could signal a broader shift in how neutral nations navigate an increasingly polarized global landscape. In a surprising shift from centuries of neutrality, Switzerland's outspoken stance against former President Trump's leadership marks an unprecedented moment in diplomatic history. This development represents more than routine international criticism. Switzerland, neutral during 2 world wars, has found itself in an unusual position of vocal opposition. Swiss citizens have expressed stronger disapproval of Trump's leadership than of historical figures who led armies across Europe. The Swiss perspective focuses on values that define their nation: fairness, respect for sovereignty, and protection of international rights. These principles stand in contrast to what Swiss citizens perceived as an erosion of diplomatic norms under Trump's administration. This situation raises questions about neutrality in an increasingly polarized world. When a country that maintained neutrality through conflicts involving Napoleon and Hitler feels compelled to speak out, it signals a shift in global diplomatic dynamics. The implications extend beyond Switzerland. As smaller nations witness changing international relations, they face pressure to take sides in global disputes. This challenges the traditional concept of neutrality that has allowed countries to maintain diplomatic independence. This could herald a new era where maintaining strict neutrality becomes increasingly difficult. As global powers adopt more assertive policies, traditionally neutral nations may find themselves forced to choose sides or risk isolation. The Swiss response reflects concerns about the stability of international institutions and diplomatic norms. When a nation known for diplomatic restraint breaks with tradition, it suggests established frameworks for international cooperation are under strain. This development indicates how smaller nations might navigate future international challenges when faced with policies that conflict with their core values. The question remains, can traditional neutrality survive in a world demanding clear alignment?